Welcome to the ISO Show, dispelling myths and sharing tips for success to improve your business with ISO standards.
If you're listening to this podcast, then you're in great company. We've got thousands of listeners who have a thirst for continual improvement and raising standards in business. Whether your interest is in quality, sustainability, or risk standards, I'd love to welcome you as a member to our online platform for all things ISO, the ISology Hub. The ISology Hub is the leading place to get access to all of your online resources, from in-depth training courses through to our very popular coffee break training, to templates and action plans and many other resources to help raise standards. As a member, you get access to over 100 courses, taking you from learner to practitioner to leader. The ISology Hub has all the resources that you need, which will really help to make your life easier and to help improve compliance in those business critical areas. So if you'd like access to learning and compliance resources ranging from data privacy to environmental management, anti-bribery, business continuity, quality, health and safety, to name just but a few, the list is endless actually, then we'd love you to come and join us. Just head over to the isologyhub.com.
Hello everybody, this is Ian Battersby, Senior ISO Consultant at Blackmores UK Limited. Welcome to another episode of the ISO Show. I hope you're enjoying the series so far. Hopefully this will be as helpful and informative as the previous ones. Today I want to talk about processes and sort of want to touch on their role as a tool for simplicity and for structured improvement. Now, all the management system standards propose the process approach, and it could be quite daunting to those who are not used to processes to understand what this actually means in practice. If you're going to adopt a management system standard, you're going to have to get your head around this. You can't get away from it because it's mandated in each one. So hopefully, as an introduction to it, this could be quite helpful. I often cite ISO 9004 as a reference in these shows and actually when talking to clients and colleagues. ISO 9004 is called Quality Management, Quality of an Organisation, Guidance to Achieve Sustained Success. It's not about management systems as such, like for instance say 9001. It's about how organisations improve, how they embed a quality approach into the way they operate, and to make them long-term a better organisation. There's a quite interesting paragraph that I'm going to read. I'll sort of paraphrase some of it, so forgive me for reading from a standard to you, but it goes along the lines of organisations deliver value through activities connected within a network of processes. Processes often cross boundaries of functions within the organisation. Consistent and predictable results are achieved more effectively and efficiently when the network of its processes function as a coherent system. So, 9004, it suggests that this is a good way for an organisation to operate through a network of processes across boundaries in a coherent fashion. Now, it doesn't propose a type of process. All organisations are different. The sectors are different, the way they operate within sectors are different, their organisational functions and boundaries are different, their clients are different. So, and the standards are like this. They don't say prescriptive things about how you do many things. But what it does say is that processes should be viewed as a system rather than in isolation. Now, that's a key principle of quality management and I think of business itself, viewing things as a system. It allows an organisation to manage and control the way it delivers its activities with predictable results and with an effective interaction between the activities in different areas and across all of the departmental boundaries. That's really what a system is about. But what's a process? Well, there may be a million different definitions, and I may upset people with mine. But to put it simply, a process is a set of activities which achieve a specific outcome or detailed steps describing how to do a job. Now, there's some very good reasons why we should document our process. And document is the key word here. Documenting things is essential to what I'm talking about today. Processes show how to repeat tasks consistently so that we can get the same results every time. As such, they also guide people in how to do their jobs. So they lay out, sometimes step by step, what it is expected of people and functions. They also allow us to measure the outcomes as we expect, okay? And that also then allows us to provide for a structured approach to improvement. And also, using a process approach, we can help to mobilise new contracts, new products, new services of a similar type. And for many organisations, that's essential in supporting growth, being able to tap into new customers and new products by taking steps we understand already and expanding upon those to deliver something that we can predict the outcome of. Now, let's talk about process in a bit of detail. Outside of work context, we're all quite familiar with processes in our daily life. Take an Amazon order, for instance. You go online, you search for something, you might choose a manufacturer, supplier, brand, a colour, a size of something. If you're happy with that, you pop it in your basket. When you come to your basket, it'll say, how do you want it delivered? Would you like Prime? Another process we go and look at. No, we don't want Prime. We'll have standard delivery or one-day delivery for $4.49 or $4.99 or whatever that might be. You choose your delivery option. You proceed to checkout and payment. That might invoke another process through your banking app to authorise the payment. That payment's processed. Amazon organises the dispatch of it. It's sent via courier, whoever, and it's received by you. Quite a straightforward, simple approach to life there. That's really a quite simple approach to process as well. And hopefully everybody can understand that that's how process works. We could sort of document this Amazon process in many ways, either through textual documentation, or visually. I particularly like process maps, or process flows, if you want to call them that. I won't get hung up on the name. There are experts out there in this field of things who will argue about what I say, the terminology I use, the style I might approach things with, the shape of box I will use for different functions within a process. But my aim is to remain as simple as possible. Once you establish the basis for plotting out these sorts of things, you can then ponder on the complexities of different, more sophisticated approaches to process mapping. And depending on which industry you work in, you may well have to take one of their prescribed methodologies for process. But I'm starting out with the baby steps. So what is it? Process map is simply a series of boxes on a page or a screen, and each box represents an activity. These activities are then linked in a sequential order using arrows. And that's all there is to it. As an example, let's say we have a process which repeats a very simple standard task as many times as is required until we get the right outcome. So how do we demonstrate this in a process map? We draw this map out. Let's say our first box is start job. Great. We start the job. This then points to our next box, which is perform task. Simple. In turn, this points to a third box. This is slightly different because this third box is a question. And the question is, was it good? So did we get the result we expected from box number 2? There are 2 possible outcomes. Simple, yes and no. So there are 2 arrows which come out. Okay, if no, we need to learn from what happened. Simple concept of quality management, yeah. So we lead to another box where we learn. So box says, learn from this. And once we've learned from it, we go back and we perform task. So the arrow goes backwards to perform task. If we perform the task again and the outcome is favourable and the answer is yes, we have another box, end job. Right, so this is quite simple. It's a lot simpler if I have pictures, let me assure you. But as a podcast, this is more difficult. Now, a lot of processes are clearly much more complex than this. They're not this simple. But what process maps are good at is breaking down things and making sense of complex systems, breaking things into manageable chunks. So the perform task box I talked about earlier, that could actually be several subtasks, which themselves could be laid out as a process map. There are all sorts of ways we can go with this. What I don't favour is massive process maps with lots of things in them, because people need to understand their part in what they're doing in the process map. I have worked in organisations who have insisted that the entire process of a major function within the organisation is laid out with several hundred boxes, with arrows pointing in unfeasible directions and all over the place, and which cannot be represented without printing out onto an A0 sheet of paper. Now, there were reasons for doing that, but as a useful document for most people, and a useful activity and improvement, it could be quite difficult. So I propose that you break things down into manageable chunks. But also, I propose people start at the top. It's a good place to start in what we often call a process overview. This is the main steps to how you run your organisation. Now, all organisations are different, but your organisation might be one which markets things and sells. So you have marketing, sales. Then there is a production activity, and then a delivery activity, and then post-delivery activities. Quite straightforward, sequential type of organisation. Now, each of those in themselves will have more detailed steps, which can be mapped and probably linked to each other. So that's the top, that's where you start. That's useful to an outsider as well, because that demonstrates the sort of overall what your company's trying to achieve. And as I go into organisations, they're quite useful. It gives me an overview, but that's really not the end of the story. But how do you go about this? How do you go about the process of mapping? There'll be people who know about this high-level overview of your organisation, subject matter experts, SMEs, departmental heads, functional leads, senior managers, call them what you will, these people. They'll consider how you overall deliver in line with the organisation's direction, how you respond to the requirements of customers and to other interested parties. But they won't know everything about everything. So it shouldn't be done alone by individuals. And it most certainly should not be done by somebody called a quality manager, for instance. That person in a quality management role may facilitate a process like this. They may apply a consistent approach and format and the document control required. They may question the rationality of steps, the validity of process steps. They may help assess that outcomes are as required or predicted. So they have a role potentially in helping people to achieve what they want through process mapping. But if you hand over the writing of process to someone who's not fully involved in that part of the organisation where the process originates, There's only one outcome, I'm afraid, and that's a bit of a disaster. I've worked in places very complex places, where heads of departments, complex departments, have come and said, Ian, mate, could you write a process for me? And I've said, yeah, fine, I'll write a process, but it will be rubbish, because you know an awful lot more about how you operate than I ever can. And the technicalities, the intricacies, the people involved, the sub-processes, the communications, the authorizations, you know all those things. I can help you. I can ask you questions. I can help you document it. But it should be done by the people who've got intimate knowledge of how things are done. So get the right people to think about process. Lots of different people will know about how things work, or how they ought to work. But processes also cross boundaries and involve different people, functions, teams. And it's important to consider how they impact across these boundaries. There are touch points and handoffs between all things that we do. I talked about roles, responsibilities, authorities, but also you have this issue that you have an authority to deliver something to another part of the organisation. But understanding how that delivery, that touch point works, is key to making sure it works effectively. You can't write a process that ends at your departmental boundary if it then has implications for the next department which receives something from you. So what do you pass between different functions within an organisation? And how do you get those things to work? It's not through that old-fashioned silo mentality. It's about discussing across boundaries. And going back to what I said about 9004, the coherent approach in a system. Now, we need to think practically about how we deliver, how people actually do their jobs. This is a very important aspect of process. This shouldn't just be a wishful document. Things that go into a manual to show others how fabulous your organisation is. Processes dictate how we operate. They dictate outcomes, and outcomes are of great importance to us. We need to visualise how process works. This is what I favour, the visual method. It doesn't have to be visualised in any sense. We all operate in different ways, but we need to be able to work out in our minds what it is that we're trying to do. The starting point could be drawing down on a piece of paper just major boxes of what we deliver. Throw some post-it notes onto a flip chart. I don't know. Put it on a whiteboard and take a photograph of that. Write it out in a Word document. Simple, clear, concise phrases of what is done. But make it clear what the process does and what it delivers, which is understandable to the people who matter. But make it documented. This is essential. This is what unleashes the power to measure what you do and improve how you do it. Documenting something allows you to compare the way things are done to what you expect, and to establish that the outcome is exactly as you want it to be. Taking my method of a process maps, and that's just one way. There are other ways. Procedural documents can have their place. Some like step-by-step written instructions. You can have documents with screenshots of systems and what the screens look like as you progress through the activities. A system can combine many types of documented information. So don't get hung up on the way it's done. It's the outcome of what you get from it. But also the standards don't prescribe how you should do it. But returning to process maps, these, as I said, provide for a visual way to show how things operate. Not to say that other methods don't allow you to do that, but I like it this way. For me, the visual aspect really does help. It's important. But the key again is to document how you do things. And this allows lots of things. Lots of things stem from documenting it. Firstly, I mentioned earlier, it's a good way to help people to do their jobs. If nothing else, telling people through a documented approach, whether it's visual or written, helps people on their first day to understand what it is you expect them to do. It assigns to them and to everybody roles and responsibilities and authorities, what you are allowed to do. It defines which people and functions do things, how people communicate and report to each other. All of the management system standards require us to define roles, responsibilities, and authorities. And process maps are very good at being able to do that. Each box as well within a process map, each activity, can also be measured for its success. Performance indicators can be established at individual activity level or overall process level to demonstrate that the outcome you're seeking is being delivered. You can see that processes are successful in achieving intended outcomes of your management system, and that's what it's all about. The results of process monitoring can form part of your overall monitoring and measuring regime as required by all of the standards in Clause 9. It's about evaluating performance. You don't necessarily need to write a monitoring and measuring plan if you can point to where you're measuring how you perform within individual processes and even down to activity level. That's a perfectly valid way to demonstrate monitoring and measuring as required by any of the standards. Processes are great as a basis for audit as well. As an auditor, this is something I look for to help me. It's very powerful. Audit's about assessing whether you get what you expect. So there are many things within process which support this. Firstly, it proves that you've got a documented system as required under Clause 7.5 of standards. As mentioned a moment ago, it can demonstrate that you've assigned roles, responsibilities and authorities. That's in Clause 5.3 of standards. It demonstrates the process approach, which is what we're after with all of them. It shows activities and their interrelationships to deliver all the organisation's intended outcome, an essential part throughout. And it helps an auditor to compare step by step that activities do deliver outcomes, that people follow those activities for one, but that those outcomes are effective. And then that leads on to the identification of non-conformity and improvement on the back of it. It's also useful, never mind auditors, it's useful to explaining how you deliver to external parties. Customers may be very interested in how you deliver to them. And the process approach is quite good at simply putting to them what it is you do in order to fulfill their requirements. But it also can help support you in demanding how others deliver to you, how your supply chain should do things. So they're quite powerful in the sort of communication with external parties, which is required in standards. Now also all management systems must have management review. And process performance is something which should be built into the management review process in Clause 9.3.2. If you've written measures into your process, as I mentioned a little earlier, you can evidence conformity to your processes at your management review. Or you can define the steps to making improvements on the back of measuring whether you've been successful or not. And then that leads you into Clause 10 on improvement. So processes are really quite helpful throughout the entire standards process. And talking of improvements, once you've written how you wish to perform activities through processes, and that is visual or not, that documentation allows you to perform improvement activities on the process. You can perform a what-if analysis. You can do comparisons of as-is processes with to-be processes. And you can look at moving activities around the boxes from one place to another, changing the lines, where they lead to, which direction they go, adding new ones, deleting things, amending the content. changing how boundaries are crossed between different processes, using a planning approach to predict the outcome of these processes and of the overall process is another essential part of the plan, do, check, act cycle within standards. And a visual version of a process is very powerful in being able to do that. So, to sum up, it doesn't matter what form of process you adopt, whichever way you wish to document them, by the simple fact that you are documenting them, you have the power to improve. And that is essentially what management system standards are there to deliver. So, thank you for listening. I hope you found that useful, informative. Before I go, can I just ask that you subscribe to the ISO Show podcast series on your favourite media player if you've not already done so. And if you've got a spare few minutes, please leave us a nice review. 5 stars would be lovely. The review process helps us to reach out to more people, to a wider audience, so that's helpful to us. As always, if you've got any questions or any suggestions or anything that you think might make a useful topic for the future, we're very happy to hear about that. So please feel free to send us an email, pop a comment in the media player. We'd love to hear from everybody. That's all from me today, so thank you for listening, and we'll catch up again on the next ISO show. Thank you, goodbye.
Looking to use ISO standards to drive better business practice? Contact us at blackmoresuk.com to access further information and book your free 15-minute call.